What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a brand new video. Today we have the top 5 best SMGs in Battlefield 2042. I can already hear you guys thinking, but Max, there's only 5 SMGs in Battlefield 2042, and that is correct. So this list will be more of what you should use right now, which ones are the best SMGs and the worst SMGs. So it's pretty much a list from worst to best. And I also will be showing you guys quickly what attachments I recommend using to make the gun as best as it possibly can be. And especially since the recent nerf or a recent update, some SMGs got nerfed and buffed so that the guns have changed quite a bit. So this is more of a recommendation video of what SMGs you should use right now. Also, for a more in-depth guide, I will have a playlist linked down in the description. And let me know what you guys' top 3 favorite SMGs is, or just your only favorite SMG. I'm very curious. I've got a Mastery 100 with all the SMGs, so I've played with them quite a bunch also after the last update, so I think this list is going to be pretty accurate. But of course, I'm always curious to hear you guys' opinion, what you think about it. So I want to start off right away with number 5, and it's the MP9, which recently got a nerf, and that is why it's on number 5. It used to be one of the best SMGs, if not the best SMG at some point. However, right now it has a couple of downsides, which is the range. They increase the spread and the damage drop off with the MP9, which makes it not as good from range anymore. It doesn't have a lot of recoil compared to some of the SMGs in the class, but the MP9 right now, even though it is very accurate, has a lot of spread right now, which makes it inaccurate anyway, no matter how good your aim is. With the increased spread and the damage drop off, it's just not as good from medium and longer range anymore as it used to be. So that's why I'm putting it on number 5. Also, what the problem is with the MP9 is the drum mag. You only have one backup mag, so you run through ammo a lot quicker compared to all the other SMGs you have in this class. So for attachments, what I use is the Fusion Hollow. I use the drum mag, I use the laser sight, and I don't use a barrel. I have the silencers as backup, of course, and I have the close combat extended as backup rounds in case I run out of ammo. You can, of course, use a different barrel if you kind of struggle with a certain type of recoil, but I kind of just prefer to have no barrel at all. There's no fooling around. So for number 4, and this might be kind of a surprise, it is the PBX45. I know this is a lot of you guys' favorite SMG, however I just don't think it can top the P90K30 or the PP29. The PP29 is kind of debatable, as I think the PBX will kill faster. However, I like to use the close combat rounds, which kill very quickly on the PBX, but you only get 35 rounds in your mag compared to the 65 rounds you get in the PP29. And for a game like Battlefield where there's a lot of players, I don't think having smaller round mags is really going to be helpful. So that's why I put the PBX45 on number 4. I still think this is a very good SMG and maybe one of the most versatile SMGs. It can do long range, it can do short range, it can kill very quickly up close. I just don't think it really beats the K30 up close, and I don't think for long flanks you're gonna be as good as the PP29 or the P90. So that is why I put it at number 4. For the attachments, I have the Fusion Hollow as always. The Fusion Hollow or the sight you put on the gun is always kind of personal taste. I would with SMGs always go with a lower zoomed in sight. Now I use the close combat, definitely a must on this gun. It will kill a lot faster if you use close combat, and it works completely different. The extended mag is very good as well. If you use the extended mag, try and play a little bit more passive with the gun as you normally would. And with the extended round, because the bullet speed is a lot slower, you can kill targets from longer range a little bit faster, because the damage drop off isn't as bad as the close combat. And I have the standard issue as backup if you run completely out of ammo, which I rarely use. So it's mainly close combat and extended mag. Then I use a laser sight and I use the Arcom Tactical Muzzle Brake to reduce the horizontal recoil. It will increase the vertical recoil, but I think it's not too much. So I would definitely recommend the Arcom Tactical Muzzle Brake. Now for number 3 we're on right now, it is the PP29. This gun is extremely good and kind of underrated in my opinion. I don't see many players run the PP29. The down part of this gun is it doesn't kill as quickly as most SMGs in the class right now. However, the PP29 has very good range. You gotta specifically stand still with this gun when you're shooting, because otherwise the spread will increase a lot. But you will notice with this gun, the PP29, is that you can kill players from a long range quite quickly compared to the other SMGs. Also with the 65 round mag, you can go on crazy flanks, which I think is important in Battlefield 2042. In general, in Battlefield games where it's quite chaotic, you want to kill a lot of players in a short amount of time. I think the PP29 is good. Also, the reload is extremely fast for a 65 round weapon, and that is why I think it deserves the number 3 spot. It is very underrated. It takes a little bit to get used to. It's not the best at gunfights, but it can do anything other very well. It doesn't have a lot of damage drop off. The hip fire is pretty decent, and I think it just deserves the number 3 spot, especially for that mag size that it has, which is very useful when you're an aggressive player and you want to hop on the objective, especially on breakthrough where you have to kill a lot of players on one space. Having 65 round mag with a pretty decent time to kill is definitely worth it. So for the attachments, you don't have much choice on the PP29. I used the Fusion Hollow, I used the standard issue rounds, and I don't use a underbarrel because you can't, and then I don't use a barrel as well. I have a silencer's backup, which I actually use quite often because it's always nice to have a flank, especially when you're on breakthrough. Do keep in mind that the silencers kind of work differently in this game. Each silencer kind of has its pros and cons. So these are the attachments that I use, nothing really special. But yeah, this is what I use for the PP29. Now for the number 2 gun, we have a gun that they recently added into the game from Portal, and it's the P90 from Battlefield 3. Also a gun that I think deserves a little bit more love, and it takes a little bit to get used to. At sometimes it feels kind of weak, but once you start understanding the gun, it's very good. It doesn't have a lot of damage drop off, and it doesn't have a lot of recoil, which I think makes the gun very good for pretty much any situation. I don't think it's bad at anything. It has good hip fire. It will only lose up close range gunfights from the K30 and the PBX most of the time. Otherwise you're gonna win because it has great hip fire. The reload is very fast and satisfying in my opinion because it has the nice animation. It doesn't have a lot of recoil, and you can take out players with the 50 round mag from a pretty decent range because you can keep on spraying. And again, just like the PP29, for aggressive playstyle when you're trying to wipe the objective, there's no better gun to do it than a P90. It has a super fast time to kill. If you ever get killed by the P90, it feels like you're getting one framed. So it definitely deserves a little bit more love. I don't see as many people use this as I think there should be. It's definitely my favorite SMG. I just don't think it's the best SMG right now. So I want to go into the attachments. I use the Cobra sight. I also like the reflex sight. And then I have the laser sight as backup to make the hip fire a little bit better. You don't really have a grip on this, so the recoil is kind of just what it's going to be. And then I have the flash suppressor, which you might as well put on there to make the gun a little bit more visible when you're shooting at targets. Of course, I have the silencer as backup. Would not recommend using the silencer on the P90 for the reason that it will definitely, you will notice how much weaker the gun gets when you put on that suppressor. So flash suppressor, Cobra sight, and the laser sight. Now for the number 1 gun, and even though this gun got nerfed recently, I still think it is the best SMG in the game. It does have a skill ceiling. You need to be very good at recoil control with this gun, but it is the K30. The reason nerf made it a lot worse for range, because it increased the spread. It's a lot more inconsistent, and even if your aim is very good, your bullets won't necessarily go where you're shooting, but up close it melts, and I still think up medium range it melts. I think the nerf was deserved because the gun was broken. Right now I simply still think it's the best SMG in the game. It just takes some time to get used to the recoil pattern, but once you do, you can actually start beaming very quickly. It has a super fast time to kill. There's barely any weapons that could beat it up close. Of course the one-shot weapons could beat it up close, but the most used weapons, you won't really lose gunfights at all. And that is why I think the K30 is the best SMG. There's other SMGs that are better at range, so it's not the overall most versatile weapon like the PBX, but I think in the SMG class, especially when you have an aggressive playstyle, this must be your go-to weapon. So for the attachments on the K30, I have again the Fusion Hollow. I have the drum mag. You need 3 mags because you're gonna burn through ammo super quickly with that 1100 rate of fire. You have the extended mag as backup, and then I use the high power extended as another backup when I run through ammo, which happens quite often. And then I have the laser sight as backup. I don't use the barrel, and I use the silencers quite often. Silencers are still good. They will have damage drop off, obviously, but it's kind of it makes sense. The rap suppressor doesn't have any damage drop off for range, but you will notice that the bullets are a lot slower. So rap suppressor is still very good, and the T4 heavy suppressor will definitely reduce the damage, but if you're up close, you're barely gonna notice. So that is the top 5 SMGs in Battlefield 2042. Hopefully this video was useful. Let me know what you think, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. And I just hope this video was useful. In case it was, consider subscribing, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.